Thank you for joining us for today's message. Please visit Upward.Church if you have a story to share or if you'd like to support this ministry.
We're looking at God's remedy for your relational wounds. It's getting better and better, so next week we'll end this, but your relational wounds. Because we're living in an imperfect world, you're going to get hurt, and you will be wounded. So you will be hurt by accidents, you will be hurt by illnesses, but the deepest wounds that you will have in your life will be from other people. Relationships are the greatest source of stress in our lives. They are also the greatest blessings and they're the greatest joy. But people do hurt us. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, but they hurt us. The problem in our response to those hurts is usually the wrong thing. So before we can look at God's remedy to relational wounds, I need to tell you 5 things that we should not do when people hurt us. Okay? These things cause problems in our lives. So what not to do when people hurt you? Number 1, don't ignore it. Okay? We often try to cope by pretending that we're not hurting. Okay? For instance, denial. Okay? I don't have a problem. Well, I'm not hurting. They didn't really hurt us. Okay? So we sometimes deny that we're hurting. Sometimes we minimize our hurt. Well, it was no big deal. I guess they had a little bit of hurt there, but it didn't really hurt me that bad. So that doesn't really solve anything. Or sometimes we fester. You know, one of these days I'm going to deal with it. We keep putting it off. Okay? Because we always try to postpone the unpleasant. That's just human nature. Ignoring your wound never heals it. People say, what? Time heals all wounds. Well, sometimes time makes them worse if we keep putting it off. Psalm 39 says it this way: I kept very quiet, but I became even more upset. I became very angry inside, and as I thought about it, my anger burned. I mean, can you identify yourself with this? Putting it off doesn't always help. The wounds get infected and spread when we don't deal with them. So if you don't deal with it, it comes out sometimes at the wrong time with wrong people. So don't ignore it. Number 2, when people hurt you, don't run from it. Okay? David tried this. David, the guy who wrote Psalm 23, he tried this. In Psalm 55, he says, I wish I had wings like a dove. Do you ever feel like this? You know, you don't want to deal with hurts in your life. I wish I had wings like a dove. Get away from me. Then I can fly away and rest. I would hurry to my place of escape. Again, this is human nature. When we face difficulty, we run from it, or we want to run from it. It's not by accident that all the doors in public buildings, they open outward. I mean, it's the code, right? It's the law. We try to get away from our pain. Human nature. There are so many different ways for us to escape from our pain. We go to the movies, we watch TV, we drink alcohol, we do drugs, we get divorced, we go to Disney World. I mean, we do all kinds of different things. Shopping, yeah. The problem is that you still have the same problem when you get back. You can get high, but when you come down, nothing is solved. Nothing is changed. Nothing is resolved. So don't run away from it. Number 3, what not to do, don't hide your hurt. Some people keep their hurt to themselves. They don't tell anybody. They wear a mask. See, some of you are quite good at just camouflaging your pain. You wear nice clothes and have a pleasant smile, but the fact is, you've been hurt by somebody very deeply. Sometimes we play this game called, Is there anything wrong? And we always answer, no, everything is all right, nothing's wrong. See, we hate to admit when we're hurting, right? We'll admit it when we're angry, but not when we're wounded. See, we don't like to admit that someone has deeply wounded us. So what we do is we disguise it. See, sometimes we disguise our pain with materialism. We go shopping, right? We call it retail therapy. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but when you hurt, all the possessions in this world won't soothe that pain. When I kept things to myself, I felt weak deep inside me. I moaned all day long, Bible says. See, hiding a hurt only intensifies it. It only makes it worse. James says it this way, confess your faults to one another that you may be healed. Sometimes we need to talk about our hurts. Everybody has wounds. Do you know that? Everybody has wounds. You're not alone. You may think you're the only one in the world in pain right now. You may feel like that. But there are others that have the same wound. If you could somehow get up the courage to share it, you may be able to find relief. And you would start on the pathway to healing. You don't heal yourself by ignoring it or running from it or hiding it. So don't hide. Number 4, don't worry about it. Worry is an attempt to control the uncontrollable, right? I'm very good at this, so I know. You're trying to control something you can't control. So what do? You worry about it. Worry is playing God. That's what it is. See, when you play God, it makes you more miserable because inside you know that you're not God. Job says this, to worry yourself to death with resentment would be a foolish, senseless thing to do. He should know. I mean, he's an expert at this. Worry never solves problems. It never heals. See, all worry does is it increases the size of your pain. Every time you rehearse whatever it was, your pain, your hurt, in your mind, you're making it bigger and bigger. So don't worry about it when somebody has hurt you. The last thing you shouldn't do when someone has hurt you is don't resent it. Resentment never helps. The problem is that we do this all the time when people hurt us. So we become bitter, we become angry, we become cynical. Again, Job says, you are only hurting yourself with your anger. When you think about it, when you have resentment inside of you, only person you're hurting is yourself. You're not hurting anybody else. Bitterness hurts you far more than anybody that you think is receiving this anger from you. See, no matter what anybody has ever done to you, maybe you're rejected, maybe you were molested, maybe, I don't know, bad things were happened to you. But there's something far worse. That's bitterness. Bitterness is a poison that will eventually kill you. It eats you up inside. See, resentment is a self-defeating attitude. You're only hurting yourself with your anger. You got to learn to let go. Now, it's not easy. It's easier said than done, but you have to learn to let go. So if none of these approaches are really working to heal your hurt, what do? Well, Psalm 23, verse 5. Now here, the scene changes from the field. He's a shepherd. He's talking about sheep. The Lord is my shepherd, right? The scene is changing from the field to a feast. Now, David uses these images, but this particular image of a banquet. So he gives us 3 illustrations or symbols that illustrates 3 steps you need to take in order to let the power of God heal your wounds. Okay, he says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Now, he's talking about sheep. But he says, you prepare a table before me. How do sheep sit at the table? It makes no sense, right? Initially, when you think about it. So we'll talk about that. These are symbols that represent how to get healing from God. Okay, so 3 things. Number 1, let Jesus settle the score. Okay? Let's say it together. Let Jesus settle the score. Okay, so that was unfair of me to just spring this on you. Okay, let's say it together. Let Jesus settle the score. All right. Basically, don't try to get even. Don't seek revenge. Don't retaliate against those who hurt you. You need to learn to give it to God. Let God settle the score, and He will. David says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Now, sheep have many natural enemies. Wolves, coyotes, bears, snakes, and ticks. I mean, the little thing. Sheep are defenseless animals. They cannot defend themselves from anything. All right? They don't have sharp teeth to bite. They don't have claws. They can't even kick. They can't even run fast. So they are absolutely the most defenseless animal. They don't know how to do anything. I mean, sheep are not smart and they're defenseless. They need somebody else to protect them. That's sheep. So a good shepherd finds a good tableland, a mesa, a field of green grass, and drive out all the enemies. Right? Then he brings the sheep and gives them a safe place to eat. So he scouts out the pasture and drives out the enemies. That's what a table is for. This is not like a picnic table, but it's a tableland where he drives in the sheep, green pasture. And God says, let me handle your hurt. Let me protect you. Let me defend you. Romans 12, we've been talking about this verse a lot. Never pay back evil for evil. Never avenge yourselves. Leave that to God. For he has said that he will repay those who deserve it. So think about it. God knows the people who've hurt you. He saw it, and he cares. He can settle the score. He says, you cannot recover from your wound as long as you're seeking revenge. So are you going to get revenge, or are you going to get well? You can't do both. See, Bible says, God will repay those who deserve it. So if you're seeking revenge, what if they don't deserve it? You're in trouble, right? So if you take a step back and let God handle it, they will get what they deserve from the judge himself. So you got to learn to take it easy. So there's only one way you're going to find peace, and that's forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean you say, well, it's okay that you hurt me. That's not what it means. It does not mean what you did to me is not bad. That's not what it means. Forgiveness does not mean it did not hurt. Forgiveness does not mean denying that evil was done. Forgiveness means giving my hurt to God and letting God settle the score. Trusting God to handle the situation and not try to get even. Let him prepare a table before you. If you're hurting today, let God be the defender. Let him prepare this table before you in the presence of your enemies. Now you think, well, why should I forgive? They don't deserve it. They hurt me. I'm hurting. I'm angry. Why should I forgive? Number one, you have been forgiven by God. That's why you need to forgive. God's forgiven you, and he wants you to forgive other people. And number two, resentment makes you miserable. That's why you should forgive. And number three, you're going to need forgiveness in the future yourself. Matthew says, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. You need more forgiveness later, trust me. So you better be merciful now. The longer you try to get revenge, the longer you will experience that wound. So let Jesus settle the score. Number two, let Jesus soothe your wounds. Let's say this together, okay? Let Jesus soothe your wounds. Okay? You anoint my head with oil, David says. Shepherds put oil on the heads of the sheep for two reasons. Number one, to soothe. And number two, to heal. You know, one of the worst enemies of sheep is flies. I mean, sheep are so defenseless. You know why? They can shake off the flies with their hooves or even with their tail. Tail is so, do they have tail? I guess they do, but they can't shake off flies, okay? So what happens is that flies can go up their nose and lay eggs, right? And the larva drives them crazy. So sometimes in the summertime, you will see sheep banging its head against rocks, right? Because it's driving them nuts, right? So you think about it, isn't it amazing that little things in life, they really irritate you? God knows about that. What shepherds do is to take the olive oil and mix it with sulfur and anoint the head of the sheep. And it's like an insect repellent. All right? So this represents the shepherd saying, I'll take care of your irritations. The things that irritate you, I'll take care of them. So whatever it is that is irritating you today, that little things that bothers you, those pebbles in your shoes, you're saying, God, I know they're little, even so little to even pray about. God knows about that. And God says, let me anoint your head with oil. Let me take care of your little irritations in life. God will soothe your irritations in life. Now, the other way the oil is used is as an ointment. When sheep has an open wound because he's banging its head against the rocks because of all these irritations, there's an open wound. So this oil is used for an ointment. It would protect them and is also soothing. So when David says, you anoint my head with oil, he's saying God is going to soothe my wounds as well. See, this is the same thing that Jesus wants to do with our wounds. Psalm 147, God heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds. He says, not only will I settle the score, but if you will come to me, let me have your hurts. I will settle the score, and then I will repair your broken heart and restore your spirit. I can soothe your hurt. I can bandage them up. See, once you've forgiven a person who hurt you, that doesn't mean that your hurt will go away. You still hurt, right? Forgiveness is instant, but restoration takes time. Forgiveness is instant, but restoration may take days, weeks, months, or even years. Think about it. God heals the brokenhearted, but bandages their wounds. I mean, God cares about us so much. Not only He takes care of our broken hearts, but He's bandaging our wounds. See, when you get a small cut, you don't need a bandage, right? But deep wounds must be bandaged and dressed. See, the problem with many Christians is that we expect that once you've been forgiven, or once you forgive a hurt, you expect to be, I guess, well, or you expect to feel that healing, a feeling of healing. You need to feel that immediately. You expect that. But you're not going to get that. See, you've taken the first step. By forgiving somebody, you've taken the first step. Now comes the healing where God is soothing your soul. It takes time to heal. If you're hurting right now from a major hurt, whether that happened, I mean, that all happened in the past, but whether you're going through it right now or that happened a long time ago, you have to understand a couple of things. Number one, healing occurs in two phases. I mean, you know this. Let me just remind you. You know this physically, okay? And it's also true emotionally and spiritually. When you have a wound, let's say you had a surgery, or you had a broken bone or something like that, there are always two phases to the healing. First is the be still stage. You lay in bed after surgery, right? Or you have to be still after they put a cast on your broken bone or something, right? You're not supposed to move. Now, after a while, they cut your cast off, right? Doctor says to move your body. That's the second stage. Get moving stage. There are people who are specially trained to do this. Physical therapists, and we hate them. You know why? Because they make you do things you don't want to do, right? They make you do stuff that makes us feel uncomfortable, sometimes painful. So even after you've been totally healed, you're going to have a scar. So there are always scars after you've been hurt. So when you have a scar, you have a choice. Every time you look at a scar, you can either remember your hurt and be angry, or you can remember your healer and the healing. Look at the scar and think of God's grace. When you remember the defeat, the failure, that divorce, that hurt, you think, hey, why did this happen to me? That's one choice. Or you can think, I am a trophy of God's grace. You could instead focus on the healer. That's your choice. Number 3, my cup overflows. Let Jesus satisfy your needs. Let's say it together, let Jesus satisfy your needs. I know it's hot, wake up, okay? Last point. So in the Bible, an overflowing cup is a symbol for total satisfaction. Okay? It means I've got something you need. So in the Middle East, this is something that I did not know. Okay? So listen, in the Middle East, it's mostly desert, right? I knew that. Okay? So when somebody comes to your house, you offer them a drink, right? So if a cup is overflowing in the desert, you're wasting something. Even if you're not in the desert, your cup is overflowing, you're wasting something, whether it's water or wine. You don't waste water or wine in the desert unless you have more than you need. So who in the desert would have water or wine more than you need? A king or somebody who's extremely rich? You have unlimited amount of water or wine in the desert. So when you need to get over a hurt, you need to look to God to meet all your needs because He has unlimited amount of grace. You can't look to yourself or look to other people because we're all limited. Now, why is this important? My cup overflows. Why is this so important? The major reason we get hurt is we expect other people to meet needs only God can meet. Isn't that true? We'll look to people to meet the needs only God can meet. No person can give you absolute security in life. Only God can do that. No person can give you all the love you need. Only God can do that. No human being can make you completely happy. Only God can do that. So if you expect that from somebody, you're going to be bitterly disappointed, angry at the person and to yourself. You are going to be wounded. God never meant for you to have all your needs met by another human being. You have needs that only God can meet. So when you expect other people to meet those needs, you are going to get resentful because they are not capable. And it's also unfair. They can't love you unconditionally 24 hours a day. They cannot make you secure 24 hours a day. They can't make you happy 24 hours a day. They cannot meet all your needs. They're not God. On the other hand, God can meet all your needs. He never runs dry. He never has a bad hair day. Okay? He never lets you down. If you look to Him, your cup will overflow. If you look to a human being, you will just be frustrated. Now, overflow with what? Well, let me just give you a couple of examples. You will be overflowing with hope. Romans says, God will help you overflow with hope in Him through the Holy Spirit's power within you. There is a power of the Spirit of God that's living inside of you. You never run out of hope, even when you feel hopeless, because you know God's never going to let you down. You will also be overflowing with love. 1 Thessalonians says, may the Lord make your love to grow and overflow. I mean, you're looking for love in all the wrong places. Not even your spouse can give you this kind of love. Your love will grow and overflow when you look to God. What else? The joy. John chapter 16, ask using my name and you will receive in your cup of joy will overflow. When you have this, when your love and hope and joy and other things will be overflowing because you're looking to God, and other gifts like your spouse, your children, and your job, all this other stuff, that there are blessings. But you know what? You got your main source, main needs met by God. They're just gravy. But if you're looking to other people for these things only God can meet, you're just going to be miserable. You're blaming people, blaming yourself. No way to live. Now, let me ask you this. In conclusion, so you will wake up again. Okay? Next week, it's not going to be this hot. Okay? I promise. I've been lying every week. God is making me a liar. It's the hottest yet today. Now, have you ever wondered, you go to somebody's house, and then how long you're supposed to stay, and when you're supposed to leave? Have you ever wondered that? I mean, I heard a story about this pastor where he invited some people to his house, right? And having a small group, and these are new people from his church. You know, he invites new people to his house, and he's never met these people before. So, you know, this particular pastor go to sleep early. They live in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, and they go to sleep really early. And they don't know that, and these are new people, and the pastor invited them, and they were having fun, and it was like, they go to sleep like 8:30 or something, very early. And he doesn't want to be rude and ask them to leave. And also he's afraid they may not come back to church again, so he's like, what do we do? So it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock, it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock. So it's like, wow, like it's for normal people this is late, and why aren't they leaving? So he went to the bedroom and he's asking his wife, like, should I ask them to go now? Or like, what kind of excuse should I use? Or should I yarn? Or and his wife says, don't you do that, you know, you're gonna embarrass me, and you know, don't, I mean, you know, they're gonna leave, like eventually, midnight or 1 o'clock, they eventually leave, so we'll get up a little bit late, what's the big deal, right? It was like, oh, but this is so rude, you know, I gotta get my sleep, and I have an early morning meeting or something. So wife says, don't you dare, you know, you have the wrong personality to do these kind of things. So he says, so another 30 minutes go by, he goes like, I gotta somehow let them, I don't care if they don't come back to church, I'm gonna tell them to leave, right? So he has another conference in their bedroom, says, you know what, I don't care if they're coming back, I don't care if I'm rude, you know. So he said all these things to his wife in their bedroom, and then came back to the living room and said, hey, hi, how you doing, you know? And all of a sudden, like, they're all packing up, and he says, oh, it's late, I'm so sorry, we should not have stayed this long, and I was like, what happened? Like, I mean, like, we were talking in our bedroom quietly, and the bedroom's far away from the living room, and just realized baby monitor was there. And it's like they heard the whole thing, and he goes like, oh no, and then he said, I never saw these two families ever again in the church. But have you ever wondered, you go to someone's house, and when do I leave? How long do I supposed to stay? Right? You don't know, right? When do you tell somebody to get lost? When do you tell somebody, hey, you can stay as long as you want, or sleep over, or how? There's a custom in the Middle East, okay, that everyone knew, that they give you a cup, and as long as your cup is filling up, you're welcome to stay. They no longer fill your cup, it's time for you to go. So nobody has to say anything, right? I mean, it's a signal kind of thing. So in the desert, even for strangers, they give you a cup when you come in, and they'll give you a drink, and as long as your cup is filled up, you stay. Your cup is no longer filled, then it's time for you to go. Because in the desert, they will entertain strangers, because you have to, right? So first thing you do is offer them a cup of water or wine, and they drink the cup, and you fill it. They drink the cup, you fill it. They drink the cup, you fill it. And if they don't fill it anymore, you're no longer welcome. Time for you to go. Now, after several refills, you leave it empty. And they look at the cup, and they look at the cup, and it's still empty. Okay, time's up, buddy. Okay, time to leave. Now, if the host decided that he or she really like you, okay, and they really want you to stay for a long time, they would take the cup, they fill it, and not only they fill it to the rim, right? They would fill it, and they will overfill it. They will make it overflow. Now, you don't waste wine or water in the desert, but when your cup is overflowing, it's a symbol that you can stay as long as you want. It meant that you're special. When God says, I am going to fill your cup to overflowing, it means you matter to God. You're special to Him. So if you're hurting today because somebody has hurt you badly, Jesus invites you to a banquet. He says, I will prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. I will anoint your head with oil. Let me soothe your wound. Let me bandage your broken heart. And your cup is overflowing. He will settle the score, soothe your wounds, and satisfy your needs. It's a deal you can't refuse. It's a banquet of wholeness, relief, and salvation. And it's available to all of us. So come to Jesus. Don't carry the burden of your pain any longer. God says, give it to me. I'll take care of you. He's the good shepherd of our life. Let's pray together.